A millionaire invites his black ex-wife to his wedding to flaunt his perfect life, but when she arrives bold, beautiful, and with her own success, his plans unravel. Old secrets, new love, and a scandal threaten to expose everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Maya Johnson sat at her desk in her downtown architecture office, staring at the cream-colored envelope in her hands. The paper was expensive. She could tell just by touching it. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the handwritten note. One more time. Dear Maya, you are cordially invited as a special guest to celebrate the wedding of James Harrison and Victoria Pierce. She couldn't believe the nerve of her ex-husband. 3 years had passed since their divorce, and now he was rubbing salt in the wound by inviting her to watch him marry the kind of woman his family had always wanted for him. Young, white, and from the right social circle. Maya, her assistant, Sarah, poked her head in. The contractors for the Highland Community Project are here for the meeting. Maya quickly tucked the invitation into her drawer. Send them in. She straightened her blazer and pushed thoughts of James aside. She had more important things to focus on than his mind games. The meeting room filled with the construction team working on her latest project, affordable, sustainable housing that would help families in need. It was everything James's luxury developments weren't, and Maya took pride in that. The solar panel installation is running ahead of schedule, Bob, the lead contractor, reported, and we're still under budget. Maya smiled, making notes on her iPad. This was her real victory, not just succeeding after her divorce, but doing it while staying true to her values. James had always told her she was dreaming too small, that there wasn't enough money in community projects. Well, she was proving him wrong. Later that evening, alone in her modern apartment overlooking the city, Maya poured herself a glass of wine and finally let herself think about the invitation. Her best friend Nicole's words from their phone call earlier echoed in her head. "Girl, you have to go," Nicole had insisted. "Show up looking amazing. Show him what he lost. Don't let him think you're hiding." Maya walked to her floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights twinkle. Nicole was right. James probably expected her to decline, to run away like she had something to be ashamed of, but she didn't. She was a successful architect making real change in the world. Maybe it was time to face her past head-on. She picked up her phone and typed a quick response. "Thank you for the invitation, I'll be there." As soon as she hit send, her stomach twisted with nervous energy. Was this a mistake? She took another sip of wine, remembering the day she'd finally left James. His mother had made yet another racist comment at a family dinner, something about Maya not understanding their ways, and James had just sat there, silent as always. "You know what?" Maya said out loud to her empty apartment. "This isn't about James anymore. This is about me showing up for myself." She walked to her home office and looked at the wall of awards and press clippings about her recent projects. Each one represented a victory, a step forward in her mission to make architecture serve everyone, not just the wealthy. James's wedding would be just another moment to show that she had not only survived, she had thrived. Maya opened her laptop and started searching for dress designers. If she was going to do this, she was going to do it right. She thought about James's family, how they had always looked down on her, no matter how successful she became. They had tried to make her feel small, but they had failed. Her phone buzzed, a text from Nicole. "Did you RSVP yet? Don't make me come over there." Maya laughed and texted back, "Done. Now I need the perfect dress." "That's my girl," Nicole replied. "Operation Show Him What He Lost is officially on." As Maya started browsing through dress options, she felt a mix of emotions, nervousness, determination, and something else she couldn't quite name. Maybe it was closure, or maybe it was the beginning of something new. Either way, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't the same woman who had left James Harrison 3 years ago. She was stronger now, more sure of herself and her path. The invitation sat on her coffee table, expensive cream-colored paper catching the light. Maya looked at it and smiled. James thought he was punishing her with this invitation, but he was actually giving her a gift, the chance to finally close this chapter of her life on her own terms. "Game on, James," she whispered, clicking on a stunning designer's website. Game on. The day of the wedding arrived faster than Maya expected. She stood in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing down her custom-made red dress. The color was bold, exactly what she wanted. Nicole sat on Maya's bed, grinning from ear to ear. "James is going to choke on his champagne when he sees you," Nicole said, adjusting her own dress. You look like $1,000,000. Maya took a deep breath. This isn't about James, she said, but her hands were shaking as she put on her earrings. I'm just going to make an appearance, show my face, and leave. Sure, honey, Nicole laughed. Whatever you say. The wedding was being held at the Harrison family estate, a sprawling mansion that Maya used to call home. As their taxi pulled up to the iron gates, memories flooded back. Sunday brunches, charity events, and all those uncomfortable family dinners where James's mother would make subtle digs about Maya's background. But you okay? Nicole squeezed her hand. Maya nodded, straightening her shoulders. Never better. They followed the path to the garden where the ceremony would take place. White flowers were everywhere, and a string quartet played softly. Maya recognized faces from her old life. James's business partners, family friends, all the people who had whispered behind her back. Maya Johnson? A male voice called out. She turned to see a tall, handsome Asian man in a well-fitted suit walking toward her. I'm Michael Chen, James's head architect. I have to say, your work on the Highland Community Project is incredible. Maya felt her cheeks warm at the genuine admiration in his voice. You know about that? Know about it? I've been following all your projects since you started your own firm. The way you've integrated sustainable design with community needs is revolutionary. Before Maya could respond, a hush fell over the crowd. Victoria Pierce, James's bride, was walking down the aisle. She looked exactly like what the Harrison family had always wanted. Blonde, elegant, and from the right social circle. Maya watched James's face as he saw his bride. There was something off about his expression, especially when his eyes drifted to where Maya stood with Michael. She caught him doing a double take at her red dress. During the reception, Maya found herself sharing a table with Michael. He told her about his work at Harrison Developments, but something in his tone seemed worried. Is everything okay? Maya asked quietly. Michael glanced around before leaning closer. Can I trust you with something? It's about James's latest project. Before he could continue, James himself appeared at their table. He'd clearly had a few drinks, and his new wife was nowhere in sight. Maya, he said, his words slightly slurred. Enjoying the party? I see you've met Michael. James, Maya replied coolly. Lovely ceremony. Victoria seems perfect for you. James's face darkened at her tone. She is perfect for me. She understands our world, unlike James. Victoria's sharp voice cut through the tension. Your mother's looking for you. As James walked away, Michael turned to Maya. I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet somewhere private? Maya hesitated. Getting involved in anything to do with James's business was the last thing she wanted, but there was something in Michael's eyes that told her this was serious. The old greenhouse, she said. Meet me there in 10 minutes. As she watched Michael walk away, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to get complicated again, but this time it felt different. This time she wasn't alone. Nicole appeared at her side with 2 glasses of champagne. I saw you talking to the cute architect, she teased, and I definitely saw James's face when he noticed. He looked like he was going to explode. Maya took a sip of champagne. I didn't come here for drama, Nicole. No, Nicole agreed, but drama sure came looking for you. Maya checked her watch. 5 minutes until she had to meet Michael, whatever he had to. Tell her about James's project. She had a feeling it wasn't good news. Part of her wanted to leave right now, go back to her peaceful life and successful career, but she knew she couldn't. If something was wrong with one of James's developments, people could be in danger. And Maya hadn't built her reputation by running away from hard truths. I need to check something, she told Nicole. Cover for me? Nicole raised an eyebrow but nodded. Always. But you better tell me everything later. As Maya made her way to the greenhouse, she could feel James watching her from across the garden. Let him watch, she thought. She wasn't his concern anymore. The greenhouse looked exactly as she remembered it, her favorite quiet spot during all those suffocating family gatherings. As she approached, she saw Michael's silhouette through the glass walls. He was pacing, clearly agitated. Maya took one last look at the wedding reception behind her, then pushed open the greenhouse door. Whatever Michael had to tell her, she was ready to hear it. She hadn't come to this wedding looking for a fight, but if James was putting people in danger, with his latest project, she wouldn't stay silent. Okay, Michael, she said as she closed the door behind her. Tell me everything. The greenhouse was warm and humid, filled with the sweet smell of flowers. Michael pulled out his phone and showed Maya some construction plans. This is James's new luxury apartment complex, he explained. The one he's building in the historic Pine Heights neighborhood. Maya knew the area well. It was a predominantly black neighborhood with beautiful old buildings and a tight-knit community. What's wrong with it? Michael's face was grim. Everything. James cut corners everywhere to save money. The foundation isn't deep enough. The support beams aren't up to code. And worst of all, he scrolled through more documents. He's using cheap materials that won't hold up in a fire. Maya felt sick to her stomach. Are you sure? I've triple-checked everything. These buildings could collapse in a strong storm. For if there's ever a fire, Michael shook his head. People could die, Maya. Before Maya could respond, they heard voices approaching the greenhouse. Without thinking, Michael pulled her behind a large plant display. Maya found herself pressed against him, holding her breath. I don't care what it costs. James's voice came through clearly. Just get it done before the inspectors show up next week. But sir, another voice said, if we rush the concrete pouring in this heat, did I ask for your opinion? Just do your job. Maya's heart was pounding, and not just from the close call. She could feel Michael's warmth, smell his cologne. When the voices faded, they stayed frozen for a moment before stepping apart. Sorry, Michael said, straightening his tie. I panicked. It's okay. Maya brushed off her dress, trying to stay focused on the real problem. We have to stop this project. I've tried. James won't listen to reason. He just keeps saying the profit margins are too important to his investors. Maya remembered how James always put money first. It was one of the many things that had driven them apart. Have you thought about going to the authorities? Michael ran a hand through his hair. I've been gathering evidence, but James has friends in the building department, and if I come forward, I'll never work in architecture again. He'll destroy my career. Maya knew he was right. James could be ruthless when crossed. She'd seen it happen to others. Let me think about this. Maybe there's another way. They heard the string quartet start playing again at the reception. We should get back, Michael said. People will notice we're gone. As they walked back to the party, Maya felt the weight of what she'd learned. James wasn't just being unethical, he was putting lives at risk. The Maya who had been married to him might have stayed quiet, might have convinced herself it wasn't her problem. But she wasn't that Maya anymore. There you are, Nicole appeared suddenly. Maya, you won't believe what Victoria's mother just said about you. Maya barely heard her friend. She was watching James laugh with his business partners, probably congratulating himself on fooling everyone. Her ex-husband was willing to risk people's lives for profit. The thought made her blood boil. Maya, Nicole waved a hand in front of her face. Earth to Maya. Sorry, what were you saying? Nicole studied her friend's face. What happened in that greenhouse? You look like you've seen a ghost. Not here, Maya whispered. I'll tell you everything later. Across the reception, Victoria was putting on a show of feeding James cake, smiling perfectly for the photographers. Maya wondered if James's new wife knew what kind of man she'd married. Probably not. Victoria seemed to care more about social status than ethics. Michael caught Maya's eye from across the room and gave her a subtle nod. They both knew they were in this together now, whether they liked it or not. James's mother clinked her glass for a toast. To my son and his beautiful bride, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Finally, the perfect match for our family. Maya felt Nicole squeeze her hand under the table, the same old dig at her not being right for their family. But this time, Maya didn't feel hurt. She felt angry. These people thought they were so superior, but they were willing to put innocent lives at risk for money. As everyone raised their glasses, Maya made a decision. She wasn't going to let James get away with this. She had spent the last 3 years building something meaningful, helping communities thrive. She wasn't about to watch James destroy lives just to make his bank account bigger. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Can we meet tomorrow? I have more documents to show you. Maya looked up and met his eyes across the room. He was risking everything by coming to her with this information. She typed back, my office, 9 a.m. The party continued around them, but Maya's mind was racing with plans. She had connections in the city planning department, friends in the media. There had to be a way to stop this project before someone got hurt. Want to get out of here? Nicole asked. You look like you need a drink and a real conversation. Maya nodded, gathering her purse. As they stood to leave, she saw James watching her again. He raised his glass in her direction, smirking like he'd won something. If he only knew what was coming. Goodbye, James, she whispered under her breath. Enjoy it while it lasts. The morning after the wedding, Maya sat in her office waiting for Michael. She hadn't slept much. Her mind kept going back to those building plans and the lives. At risk. She'd already called Nicole and told her everything. "Girl," Nicole had said, "be careful. You know how James gets when someone crosses him." The elevator dinged, and Michael walked in carrying a thick folder and 2 coffee cups. "I thought you might need this," he said, placing one in front of her. "You're a lifesaver." Maya took a sip. It was exactly how she liked it. "How did you know?" Michael smiled. "I pay attention." They spread the documents across her desk, building permits, safety reports, material orders. Michael had been collecting evidence for months. "Look at this," he pointed to some numbers. "James ordered the cheapest foundation materials I've ever seen. This stuff wouldn't hold up in a light rain, let alone a storm." Maya felt her hands shake with anger. These buildings would be death traps. Exactly. And guess who's on the inspection committee? Michael pulled out another paper. Thomas Harrison, James's uncle. Of course. Maya remembered James's uncle from family dinners. He was just as prejudiced as the rest of them. So that's how James plans to get this approved. Michael ran his hand through his hair in frustration. "I tried talking to Victoria about it last week. She just said James knows what he's doing, and I should mind my own business." "Sounds like she's fitting right in with the family," Maya muttered. They worked through lunch, ordering Chinese food and eating at her desk. Maya couldn't help noticing how Michael's sleeve brushed against hers as they looked through documents, or how his cologne smelled like cedar and ocean air. "What?" Michael asked, catching her looking at him. "Nothing," Maya said quickly. "Just thinking." Around 3 o'clock, Maya's assistant Sarah rushed in. "You need to see this," she said, turning on the office TV. Victoria was on the screen giving an interview about the wedding. "It was perfect," she was saying, "though some people should have known better than to show up where they weren't really wanted." The camera zoomed in on a photo of Maya in her red dress, talking to Michael at the reception. "That little—" Maya started, but Michael put a hand on her arm. "She's trying to get to you," he said softly. "Don't let her." Maya could feel the warmth of his hand through her sleeve. She looked up at him, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The moment was broken by Maya's phone ringing. It was James. "How dare you show up with Michael?" he demanded without greeting. "Are you trying to embarrass me? You invited me, remember?" Maya kept her voice cool. "And Michael and I were just talking about architecture." "Stay away from him," James growled. "I mean it, Maya. You don't want to make an enemy of me." After she hung up, Michael looked worried. "Maybe we should stop. I don't want you getting hurt because of me." "No," Maya said firmly. "James doesn't get to threaten us. We're doing the right thing." They worked late into the evening building their case. Maya ordered pizza and they sat on her office floor surrounded by papers. "Tell me something," Maya said during a break. "Why did you really come to me with this?" Michael was quiet for a moment. "I've followed your work for years. You're not afraid to stand up for what's right, to fight for people who need help. I knew if anyone would understand, it would be you." Maya felt her heart skip. No one had ever seen her that way before. "Plus," Michael added with a small smile, "you look really good in red." Maya threw a pizza crust at him, laughing. But inside, her heart was racing. Later that night, as they were packing up, Michael's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. "James knows," he said. "Someone saw us working together. He's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm probably going to lose my job." Michael tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. "It was worth it, though." Maya grabbed her purse. "Come on. Where are we going?" "To see an old friend at the City Times. If James wants to play dirty, we need to be ready. And I'm not letting you face him alone tomorrow." As they rode the elevator down, their shoulders touching, Maya realized something. She wasn't just fighting to stop James's corrupt project anymore. She was fighting for Michael too. And maybe, just maybe, for a chance at something she never expected to find again. Real love. The Harrison development offices took up the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. Maya remembered the view from James's corner office, where she'd spent so many evenings waiting for him to finish just one more meeting. Now she was back, but everything was different. Michael stood beside her in the elevator, adjusting his gi tie nervously. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "This isn't your fight." Maya reached over and straightened his tie for him. "Yes, it is." The elevator opened directly into a reception area where Victoria sat with James's mother, both wearing matching looks of shock at seeing Maya. "What is she doing here?" Mrs. Harrison demanded, standing up. "This is a private board meeting." "Actually," Maya pulled a letter from her briefcase, I'm here as a concerned citizen with evidence of building code violations. I have every right to address the board. Victoria's perfect smile turned brittle. James won't like this. James stopped having a say in what I do 3 years ago, Maya replied coolly. The boardroom was full of familiar faces. James's father, his uncle Thomas, and other wealthy men who had always looked through Maya at family gatherings. James sat at the head of the table, his face darkening when he saw Maya. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Your ex-wife and Mr. Chen have evidence of serious safety violations. Maya's friend David from the City Times spoke up from the corner. As a reporter covering urban development, I'm very interested in hearing what they have to say. James's face went red. This is a closed meeting, security. I wouldn't. David held up his phone. I'm live streaming this to my editor. Anything happens to us, it's front page news tomorrow. Michael stepped forward, spreading his documents on the table. The Pine Heights development is using substandard materials. The foundation isn't deep enough. The support beams won't hold in severe weather, and the fire safety measures are completely inadequate. These are the ravings of a disgruntled employee, James's uncle Thomas cut in. The plans passed my inspection. Your fraudulent inspection, Maya corrected, pulling out more papers. We have proof that you signed off without ever visiting the site. The room erupted in angry voices. James's father stood up, pointing at Maya. You vindictive woman! You're just trying to hurt my son because he finally found someone worthy of our family. This isn't about your family. Maya's voice cut through the chaos. This is about the lives you're putting at risk. Real people live in that neighborhood. Families, children. They trust you to build safe homes, and you're betraying that trust for profit. Victoria burst into the room. James, darling, don't let them do this to us, not after our perfect wedding. But James wasn't looking at his new wife. He was staring at Maya, really seeing her for the first time in years. She wasn't the quiet, accommodating woman who had left him. She was a force to be reckoned with. The board needs to vote, Michael insisted. Either we stop construction and rebuild with proper materials, or this all goes public. James slammed his hand on the table. You're fired. Both of you will never work in this city again. I don't work for you, Maya reminded him. And after this story breaks, you won't have the power to hurt anyone's career. David was typing rapidly on his phone. My editor wants to run this story tonight. Any comment, Mr. Harrison? The board members were whispering among themselves. James's father looked like he was about to explode. Victoria was crying perfectly, staged tears. I move to suspend all construction pending a full investigation. One of the older board members spoke up. We can't risk lives no matter what it costs. I second that motion, another added quickly, clearly seeing which way. The wind was blowing. James stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is a betrayal, father, do something. But even James's father could see they were beaten. The evidence was too clear, the risks too great. One by one, the board members voted to stop construction. As they left the boardroom, Michael grabbed Maya's hand and squeezed it. They'd done it, they'd actually done it. This isn't over, Victoria hissed as they passed. You've made a powerful enemy. Maya met her eyes steadily. No, I've stopped being afraid of bullies, there's a difference. In the elevator going down, Maya finally let herself shake. Michael pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. You were amazing in there, he whispered into her hair. So were you. Maya looked up at him, and suddenly the space between them felt electric. But before anything could happen, the elevator doors opened to a crowd of reporters. David had called. In reinforcements. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Chen, can you tell us about the safety violations? Maya looked at Michael, who nodded. Together, they stepped forward to tell their story. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The next morning, Maya's face was splashed across every newspaper in the city. Architect exposes deadly construction scandal, read the headlines. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from reporters and old colleagues. Have you seen the stock price, Nicole asked, bringing coffee to Maya's office. Harrison Developments lost 30% in one day. James must be having a meltdown. Maya was more worried about Michael. After losing his job, he'd gone quiet. Her texts went unanswered, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Maybe I should check on him, she said, grabbing her keys. Nicole raised an eyebrow. Just professionally, right? Of course, Maya lied, but her heart was racing as she drove to Michael's apartment. She found him sitting in his living room, surrounded by papers. He looked like he hadn't slept. Michael, she called softly, are you okay? He looked up, his eyes red. They're trying to destroy me, Maya. Look at this. He handed her a letter. It was from one of the biggest architecture firms in the country, withdrawing a job offer they'd made him last month. James called them, Michael said bitterly. Told them I was unstable, untrustworthy. He's calling everyone. Maya felt sick. We'll fight this. I'll vouch for you. My firm can... No, Michael cut her off. I won't let you risk your business for something you've already done too much. Done too much? Maya sat next to him on the couch. Michael, you risked everything to do the right thing. Let me help you. Their eyes met, and suddenly the air felt thick with unspoken words. Michael reached out and touched her cheek softly. Maya, he whispered, leaning closer. The moment was shattered by both their phones buzzing simultaneously. It was a news alert. Victoria Harrison holds emergency press conference. They turned on the TV to see Victoria standing at a podium, tears streaming down her face. My husband made mistakes, she was saying, but he meant well. What's truly shameful is how his ex-wife has used this situation to pursue a personal vendetta, manipulating an innocent employee in the process. She's trying to spin this, Michael growled. Make it look like we're the bad guys. Maya's phone rang. It was David from the City Times. Turn on Channel 5, he said urgently. James's father is about to make an announcement. They switched channels to see Mr. Harrison looking grave. We are launching a full investigation into these allegations, he said. But we're also investigating disturbing evidence of corporate espionage and theft of proprietary documents. Maya felt her blood run cold. They were going to try to jail Michael for taking those documents. We need to get ahead of this, she said, already dialing her lawyer's number. But Michael grabbed her hand, stopping her. Wait, there's something I haven't told you. Maya's heart dropped. What is it? The night before the wedding, when I first found the evidence, James offered me a promotion. Said he'd make me partner if I stayed quiet. But you didn't take it. No. Michael ran a hand through his hair. Because that same night, I saw you at a restaurant. You were with some community leaders planning your affordable housing project. You looked so passionate, so dedicated to doing good, and I knew I couldn't be part of James's schemes anymore. Maya felt tears in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to think I only helped to get close to you. He stood up, pacing. But now Victoria's making it sound like we plotted this together, and I'm afraid my feelings for you will make people believe her. Your feelings? Maya's heart was pounding. Before Michael could answer, someone knocked on his door. It was a police detective. Mr. Chen, we have some questions about those documents you took from Harrison Developments. Maya stood up. He's not answering any questions without his lawyer present. The detective smiled coldly. Actually, Ms. Johnson, we have questions for you too. Your ex-husband has made some very interesting allegations. As they were escorted to separate police cars, Maya caught one last glimpse of Michael. The look in his eyes said everything they hadn't had time to tell each other. The press was already gathering, cameras flashing. Maya held her head high. James and Victoria thought they could scare them into silence. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The police station was cold and gray. Maya sat in an interview room, her lawyer Susan Martinez beside her, as Detective Rogers flipped through a thick file. So, Mrs. Harrison, the detective started. Ms. Johnson, Maya corrected firmly. I haven't been Mrs. Harrison for 3 years. My apologies. Ms. Johnson, your ex-husband claims you orchestrated this whole scandal to destroy his new marriage. He says you seduced Mr. Chen to gain access to confidential documents. Maya almost laughed. That's ridiculous. Is it? The detective slid some photos across the table. Pictures of her and Michael at the wedding at her office, leaving his apartment building that morning. You two seem very close. My client and Mr. Chen are professional colleagues, exposing dangerous, illegal practices, Susan cut in. Everything else is just character assassination. In another interview room, Michael faced his own interrogation. Through the hall window, Maya caught a glimpse of him looking tired but determined. This is harassment, Susan told the detective. You have no evidence of any crime. The only criminals here are the people who approved those dangerous buildings. Finally, after hours of questioning, they were released. Outside the station, reporters swarmed them. Maya, did you plan this to get revenge on your ex-husband? Michael, were you intimate with Maya while working for James? Nicole pushed through, the crowd with umbrellas shielding them as they rushed to her waiting car. The vultures are circling, Nicole said as she drove. Victoria's been on every morning show crying about how you're trying to destroy her perfect life. Perfect life. Maya was furious. People could have died in those buildings. They went to Maya's apartment to regroup. Maya's lawyer spread papers across her dining room table. "They're trying to bury you in legal problems," Susan explained. "James filed a restraining order. He's suing for defamation. His father's company is suing for corporate espionage." "Can they win?" Michael asked quietly. "Not if we can prove the safety violations, but they're hoping to bankrupt you with legal fees before we get that far." Maya's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of her and Michael, in his apartment that morning, taken through his window. Underneath was a message: "Drop the charges, or there will be more pictures, much more compromising ones." "They're threatening us." Maya showed the phone to Susan. "They're desperate," Susan replied. "This is good news. It means they're scared." Michael stood by Maya's window looking out at the city lights. "Maybe I should leave town for a while, give things time to cool down." "No," Maya said it more forcefully than she meant to. Everyone looked at her. "I mean, we need to stand together. If you run now, they win." After Susan left, Nicole pulled Maya aside. "Girl, when are you going to admit what's really going on with you and Michael?" "What do you mean?" "Please, I see how you look at him, and how he looks at you when you're not watching." Maya glanced at Michael, who was studying the city skyline. "It's complicated." "Love usually is." Nicole squeezed her hand. "But that doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for." Late that night, after Nicole left, Maya and Michael sat on her balcony. The city hummed below them, a million lights twinkling. "I'm sorry," Michael said suddenly, "for dragging you into this mess. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to help because it was right. Is that the only reason?" His eyes met hers in the darkness. Maya's heart raced. "No," she whispered. "You know it's not." Michael moved closer, his hand finding hers. "Maya, Her phone rang, shattering the moment. It was David from the City Times. "Maya, turn on your TV now, Channel 7. They rushed inside and switched on the news. Victoria was giving another interview, but this time she wasn't alone. Next to her sat a young woman Maya had never seen before. "Yes," the woman was saying tearfully. "Michael Chen and I were engaged last year. He left me for Maya Johnson. They've been planning this revenge against James for months." Maya looked at Michael in shock. "What is she talking about?" Michael's face was pale. "That's Lisa, my ex-girlfriend. We dated for 6 months, but we were never engaged. James must have paid her to lie." The news showed more pictures. Old photos of Michael and Lisa doctored to look recent, mixed with surveillance photos of Maya and Michael together. "They're trying to make us look like conspirators," Maya realized. "Like everything we did was about getting revenge on James." Michael grabbed Maya's hands. "Listen to me. What I feel for you is real. It has nothing to do with James or revenge or anything else. I need you to believe that." Maya looked into his eyes, seeing the truth there, and for the first time since this all began, she was truly scared. Not of James's threats or Victoria's lies, but of how much she wanted to believe in this chance at love. "I believe you," she whispered. "But what are we going to do?" The TV kept playing behind them, Victoria's fake tears and Lisa's rehearsed story painting them as villains. But in that moment, holding each other's hands in Maya's living room, they found their answer. They would fight. Together. Maya woke up early the next morning to find Michael asleep on her couch, legal papers scattered around him. He'd stayed late helping her prepare for their court appearance, and somewhere around midnight, they'd both crashed from exhaustion. She watched him sleep for a moment, his face peaceful despite everything happening around them. Her heart did a little flip in her chest. The moment was broken by her phone buzzing. It was a text from James. "Last chance. Drop everything and I'll make sure you and Loverboy still have careers when this is over." The message made her blood boil. Typical James, always thinking he could buy people off. Michael stirred, opening his eyes. "Morning," he said softly, then saw her face. "What's wrong?" She showed him the text. Michael's jaw tightened. "He really doesn't know you at all, does he?" "No," Maya smiled. "He never did." They had breakfast together, planning their next move. Nicole arrived with fresh coffee and news. "You're not going to believe this," she said, pulling up a video on her phone. "Someone leaked security footage from the Harrison building. It shows James's Uncle Thomas accepting an envelope from the contractor right before he signed off. On those fake inspection reports." Maya and Michael watched the grainy footage. There was no sound, but the bribe was clear as day. "Who leaked this?" Michael wondered. "Remember Jenny from accounting?" Nicole grinned. "Turns out she's got a conscience." "And copies of every suspicious transaction for the past year." Maya's lawyer Susan arrived next, carrying more files. "This changes everything. Jenny's evidence proves the company knew about the safety issues. They can't claim ignorance anymore. But what about Lisa? Maya asked. That fake engagement story is everywhere. About that? Nicole pulled up some old social media posts. Lisa wasn't very careful about deleting her history. Here's a post from when she and Michael broke up. She specifically says they only dated a few months, and it wasn't serious. Michael looked relieved. Can we use this? Already sent it to every news outlet in the city, Nicole confirmed. Victoria's going to have a hard time explaining why her star witness can't keep her story straight. Maya's phone rang. It was David from the City Times again. Maya, you need to see this, he said urgently. James just announced he's holding an emergency press conference. He says he has proof you and Michael fabricated the safety violations. They turned on the TV just as James stepped up to the podium. Victoria stood behind him, playing the supportive wife perfectly. But something was off about her expression. My wife and I have been victims of a cruel conspiracy, James began. I have here documents proving that Maya Johnson and Michael Chen created fake evidence to destroy my company's reputation. He held up some papers triumphantly, but before he could continue, Victoria stepped forward and grabbed the microphone. I'm sorry, she said, her voice shaking. I can't do this anymore. James tried to pull her back, but Victoria stood her ground. The safety violations are real, she announced. I saw the reports myself months ago. James said it was just business. That cutting corners was normal. He made me help cover it up. The press room erupted in chaos. James's face turned purple with rage. You betrayed me? He shouted at Victoria. No, James, you betrayed everyone who trusted you to build them safe homes. Maya and Michael watched in shock as Victoria continued to spill everything. The bribes, the cover-ups, even James's plot to frame them with fake evidence. I wanted to believe I was marrying a good man, Victoria's voice cracked, but Maya was right about him all along. The news cut to footage of James being escorted out of the building by police. His father was already giving a statement, trying to distance the company from his son's actions. Maya felt Michael's hand slip into hers. It's over, he said softly, but Maya knew better. Not quite, she squeezed his hand. Now we have to make sure those buildings get fixed properly. The community deserves that much. Michael pulled her closer. Have I told you lately how amazing you are? Their faces were inches apart when Nicole burst in. Sorry to interrupt the moment, but you both need to get dressed. Every news station in town wants an interview. Maya looked down at her wrinkled clothes from yesterday and laughed. After everything they'd been through, they were about to become the heroes of the story. Give us 10 minutes, she told Nicole. When they were alone again, Michael touched Maya's cheek softly. Whatever happens next, I want you to know. I know. Maya put her finger on his lips. Me too, but first let's go tell our story. They shared a smile, both knowing there would be time for everything else later. Right now, they had truth to tell and justice to serve. And maybe, just maybe, a love story to begin properly at last. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters and cameras. Maya smoothed down her navy blue suit, trying to stay calm. Today was James's arraignment, and she and Michael were there to testify. Ready? Michael appeared beside her, looking handsome in his grey suit. Before Maya could answer, a black SUV pulled up. Victoria stepped out, wearing a simple black dress instead of her usual flashy outfits. Maya, Victoria called out, walking over. Can we talk? Michael squeezed Maya's hand and gave them space. I'm sorry, Victoria said quietly, for everything. The lies, the interviews, all of it. I got caught up in wanting to be a Harrison, to have that perfect life. I forgot about being a decent person. Maya studied the woman who had replaced her in James's life. Victoria looked different now, more real, less artificial. Why did you finally tell the truth? Maya asked. Because of you, Victoria admitted. Watching you stand up to them, refuse to back down, it made me realize I was becoming someone I hated. Inside the courtroom, James sat with his expensive lawyers. He wouldn't look at Victoria, but he glared at Maya and Michael with pure hatred. The judge read out the charges: fraud, endangering public safety, attempted bribery, conspiracy. James pleaded not guilty to everything. Then it was Maya's turn to testify. She told the whole story, finding out about the safety violations, gathering evidence, facing threats and intimidation. And why did you pursue this, Ms. Johnson? The prosecutor asked. Even when it put your career at risk. Maya looked straight at James. Because buildings aren't just structures, they're homes. Families live there, children play there. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home, no matter their income or what neighborhood they live in. During the lunch break, Maya found Michael in the courthouse garden, sitting on a bench. "Penny, for your thoughts?" She sat beside him. "I was just thinking about the first time I saw you," he smiled. "At a community planning meeting 2 years ago. You were arguing for more green spaces in low-income housing projects. You were so passionate, so determined. I knew right then you were special." Maya's heart skipped. "Why didn't you ever say anything? You were still healing from James. And then, when we started working together, everything got so complicated." He took her hand. "Maya, I need to tell you something." But before he could continue, Nicole rushed out. "They're about to announce the judge's decision on bail." Back in the courtroom, the judge looked stern. Given the severity of the charges and the defendant's attempts to flee the country. "What?" Maya whispered to Nicole. "Oh yeah, they caught James trying to board a private plane to the Cayman Islands this morning. Didn't I mention that?" The judge denied bail. James would stay in jail until his trial. As officers led James away, he stopped by Maya's row. "I hope you're happy," he spat. "You've ruined everything." "No, James," Maya stood up. "You did that yourself, and now you finally have to face the consequences." Outside, the press wanted statements from everyone. Victoria announced she was filing for annulment and would testify against James. The Harrison family lawyer said the company would cooperate fully with investigators. Maya found herself in front of the cameras with Michael. "Ms. Johnson, now that Mr. Harrison is facing justice, what's next?" Maya looked at Michael, who smiled encouragingly. "What's next is making things right. The Pine Heights community deserves safe homes, and we're going to make sure they get them." "And what about your personal relationship with Mr. Chen?" Maya felt Michael's hand slip into hers. On live television in front of everyone, he pulled her close and finally kissed her. The cameras went crazy. Maya heard Nicole whoop in the background. But all she could focus on was Michael, the warmth of his lips, the way his arms felt around her. When they broke apart, Michael rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for so long." "What took you so long?" Maya teased. "Had to make sure you knew it wasn't about James or revenge or anything else. Just you. It's always been just you." Later that evening, they sat on Maya's balcony, watching the sunset. The news was full of their courthouse kiss, James's attempted escape, Victoria's testimony. "We should probably talk about work," Maya said, though she made no move to leave Michael's arms. "The Pine Heights project needs complete redesigning. I might know an amazing architect who..." Mouth. "Maya Johnson, you make me want to build a better world every day. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, not flashy like the one James had given her, but elegant and unique, just like Maya herself. "Yes," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Yes!" Their friends cheered as Michael slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss. "Now that's what I call a happy ending." Nicole wiped her eyes. "No," Maya said, looking at her new fiancé with love. "It's a happy beginning." Later that night, they stood on their balcony looking out at the city they were helping to build. The lights of Pine Heights glowed in the distance, a beacon of what was possible when people chose to do the right thing. "Any regrets?" Michael asked, holding her close. Maya touched her engagement ring and smiled. "Only that it took us so long to get here. We're here now." He kissed her softly. "And we have the rest of our lives to build something beautiful together." The night was warm, full of stars and possibilities. Below them, the city hummed with life, thousands of stories unfolding in countless homes. And in one of those homes, a young boy named Marcus was drawing his dreams of buildings that would touch the sky, knowing that sometimes dreams really do come true. Maya leaned back in Michael's arms, feeling truly happy. She had lost a lot to get here. Her first marriage, her illusions about James's family, her fear of standing up to power. But she had gained so much more. Love, purpose, and the knowledge that one person's courage could change many lives for the better. "I love you," she whispered to Michael. "I love you too," he answered. "Always." Together, they watched the city. Lights twinkled, two architects ready to build their future. One day, one dream, one home at a time. The end.